Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back from lunch. And since we're back from lunch, I think it's appropriate just to, again, acknowledge that we're on the traditional unceded territories of Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam. So we're very grateful to be here. If you saw Kim tripping over the title of my presentation, you can see I actually shortened the title. I decided turned it into a title and a subtitle. It's really about authentic engagement with Indigenous stakeholders, but specifically with a focus on technical projects. So many people in this room who might find themselves engaging in a technical project that involves Indigenous stakeholders or communities. This is for you. So this project is something that we co-developed, Corey Wilson and myself, and I'm very honored to have the chance to work with Corey on this project and to do this work with Corey. Corey is actually presenting a version of this presentation on June 19th at the Canadian Standards Association annual national conference. So we put this project together and we're out sharing it with people. So I mentioned CSA group. So we have partnered with CSA, which most of you have probably heard of, the Canadian Standards Association, known as CSA Group. And we're all familiar with the stickers on the hockey helmets, the symbols on the power bars, and many of you in this room probably know that CSA standardizes many things, including everything from nuclear facility standards, waste, water standards, electrical code, on and on and on. But what you might not know is that CSA has a research division, and the research division is engaged in exploring where standards are underutilized, where they could be beneficial to society. So they did some work in the north and checking out where there could be more implementation of standards to help those living in the north in areas of health, emergency response, climate change, and other environmental areas. So CSA started working in the north, and they quickly realized that they would need a strategy to better engage with Indigenous stakeholders and Indigenous communities. And they approached PCIT through Kim Dotto, and that's when Corey and I got involved. And basically the focus of our project is that when we're doing technical projects or trying to implement something with Indigenous stakeholders or Indigenous communities, we need to start with, Indigenous perspectives, histories, and reconciliation, and our goal is to strive for authentic engagement and sustainable relationships. So that means relationships that outlive the one project life cycle. That is what is expected. Not only authenticity, but also that there will be a long-term relationship. So how did we go about this? Well, first of all, we provided what we call a baseline of education. So making sure that project teams actually have access to a baseline of knowledge about Indigenous perspectives, histories, and reconciliation. So that included taking a BCIT course, which I happen to teach, on intercultural communication. This course is interesting because halfway through the course it pivots from traditional Western perspectives on intercultural communication and looks at Indigenous perspectives, global, national, and local Indigenous perspectives. As well, the members of the project team took the UBC MOOC, Massive Open Online course, which is free, an excellent resource. Many people in this room may have taken the course or heard of the course. So the project teams took that. We also worked through Corey Wilson's book called First Peoples, A Guide for Newcomers, and we worked through that and had reflection questions on that. And we also did some in-person training with an Indigenous education expert in Mississauga, because that's where the CSA head office is located. Then we helped identify specific subject matter experts in the north where the CSA is trying to do this work. And in this case, Yukon College, soon to be Yukon University, is doing great work in their research division. They have excellent track record and excellent perspectives on how to work with the communities and the stakeholders up there. So we connected with key people at Yukon College, whom Corey knows from other work that she's done. Specifically, people like Tosh Southwick, the Director of First Nations Initiatives. The President of Yukon College is very involved in building relationships with communities up there. The heads of the research division, people like Bronwyn and Clint Sawaki, are also very involved, and they have quite an extensive framework for how to engage with Indigenous communities and Indigenous stakeholders. So in February, we went up to Whitehorse. We had what we called a researcher ideas exchange. We connected with a lot of the researchers doing work up there, the greenhouse team, climate change team, renewable energy team, the water and wastewater team, and we had a panel with experts like Tosh and Karen, and that was a great experience. So what came out of that? Basically, through the ideas exchange workshop in February, we identified potential pilot projects where we would be able to test out implementation of specific technical projects in a way where we deliberately and transparently try to model the authentic engagement, the authentic relationship building with Indigenous communities and Indigenous stakeholders. So a couple of the projects that we identified in February include the microgrid, and of course, that we're talking about the microgrid developed here at BCIT. And Michael Ross from Yukon College and Hassan have already gone up north to connect with some people. We're also working on water and wastewater, and we're also working with the greenhouse team to look at cold climate greenhouse, but also large-scale greenhouses that respect the traditional knowledge and traditional ways of Indigenous communities who want them. But I think the most interesting thing to me was the notion of coming up with project criteria that might be different from the project criteria that we're accustomed to working with on technical projects. So the development of project criteria came right from, of course, all the baseline knowledge we had developed and the conversations we had, but also right from the panel that we had up there with Tosh and Corey and Karen Barnes, president of Yukon College. And so you can see with these project criteria that we're evaluating which projects we choose to run based on things like potential to recognize and incorporate traditional knowledge, potential to provide direct benefits to the community, the potential for community outreach and engagement during the project, but also the potential for ongoing outreach, benefits, communication, follow-up with the community. One of the most common things that we heard up there was that technical teams tend to parachute in, drop something in a community, leave, and never be heard from again. And that tends to mean that technical projects are not necessarily well implemented or implemented in a sustainable way. It also breaches trust with the community, of course, because it's like, well, they don't really care about us. They're not interested in having an ongoing relationship. And yes, technical feasibility was, of course, one of the project criteria. So I won't spend a lot of time on this chart, but this notion of looking at project values and community values and finding out where there's overlap and doing so through a deliberate process, starting with the baseline of education, connecting with the appropriate subject matter experts, having these conversations, finding out about communities and what the needs and expectations of the communities are. And only at the tail end of this big wheel do you actually get to project implementation. And I know for many of us who are involved in technical projects, and I know from personally working with the engineers at CSA, that's not the way projects are usually envisioned. So there were many times when I'd say, wait. They'd be emailing me and saying, Shannon, where's the thing on the thing on the thing? And we haven't heard about the thing. I'd be like, wait. wait. So to sum up, we need to change the way we think about these projects. Relationship comes first before project tasks. And again, that's not the easiest things. That's not the easiest thing for engineers and project managers to think about. It's really necessary to provide a baseline of Indigenous education to your project teams, way ahead of any project that you're even thinking about implementing. Look at the best practices of other organizations, best practices here at BCIT, best practices at Yukon College, other associations, Reconciliation Canada. Look at the best practices. See what others are doing and join in. And above all, proceed with patience and respect at all times. Thank you.
No, for you.
No, it has to go on the. Has to be streamed. There you go.
We're not streaming, we're just recording.
Oh, it has to be recorded.
So this. It's on. Okay.
It's on.
Doesn't sound different. This you can just say yes or no to this, or maybe, and we can talk about it offline because it's quite specific. But were there any discussions with Hassan and Michael Ross around relationship building and how a sustainable relationship could be successfully done and what it might look like?
So the question is about the microgrid team or parts of the microgrid team. Well, Michael Ross, who is situated at Yukon College. Michael Ross was part of the Ideas Exchange in February, so he was there with us. And it's something, the question is how is the microgrid team engaging with these concepts? It's definitely in the air. Corey is aware of the microgrid project and conversations are being had, and that's what I'll say for now. Thanks, Joey. Oh, hold on. I want it to be recorded for all eternity. Well, maybe not all eternity, but at least for a couple months.
So as someone who grew up in a small northern community and in Whitehorse and Teslin, this has personal connections to me. I'm just wondering, what small communities have you worked with in the Yukon so far? So
I'm not. I don't have all the names on the tip of my tongue, but I know that the large-scale greenhouse project. We're looking at Dawson Creek for sure, and there's a learning and teaching farm. I can't remember the name of the community, but there's a learning and teaching farm near there, which is a large-scale learning and teaching farm run by the community. And so they're looking at wanting to, obviously right now the large-scale learning and teaching farm, which honors traditional ways and also provides essential training and provides essential food source, is only open for certain, the certain months of the year,
The growing season
the short growing season. So they want to find a way. This is an interesting example. I talked to the greenhouse team, and without a line, it's not about blame or anything, but one of the things that came up was they were being told by the technical companies, you need to go vertical, like you need to, to produce large scale food productions, you need to go vertical and have a big vertical greenhouse, and in other words, like hydroponics, et cetera. And the community kept saying, no, we want it to be like a farm so that we can continue to honor the traditional ways and teach our students in the ways that we're accustomed to. So it needs to be more like just a big thing covered, in appropriately constructed materials to be able to allow a large-scale learning and teaching farm to operate in the winter months. But that's just a quick example of how we need to balance the needs of the community and the different ideologies. Yeah, so thanks for asking.
Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.